I'm so excited to talk to you. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I've seen the most amazing thing. I've been following this guy, Jesus. Maybe you've heard about him. Now, he told us not to tell anyone, but I've got to tell you about him. Well, I guess I should introduce myself first. My name is Benjamin. I'm from a small town called Gennesaret. It's on, some people call it the Sea of Galilee, or the Lake of Galilee. So it's a small town in that community, and I guess I describe myself as I'm a Jewish man. I attend synagogue when I can and when I should. I try to go as often as I can. And I'm really happy with our community there. We take care of each other. You know, we look after each other. We show each other grace, I guess, because I don't always go to the synagogue, but when I come back, people accept me in. So I'm glad to have that tight community there in Gennesaret. But anyway, I wanted to tell you about this guy, Jesus. About a week ago, some of the people in town had heard about him. But he came into town with this huge crowd. He had just come with them across the lake. He sailed across the lake and came into our town with this huge crowd of people. And you could tell that they were really tired. They had just been traveling all day. And I heard that he had been preaching and talking about new things and new ways of worshiping God. So he came into town tired, and as they came in, they asked for food. And so some food was brought to them. And when the food was brought to them, they immediately began eating. And now, we weren't the only ones who heard about Jesus preaching. There were some Pharisees, some church officials from Jerusalem who had come up to Galilee to see this guy, this teacher, Jesus, and see what he was all about. There were some scribes with him who made sure that the letter of the law, the letter of the Torah, was followed every time that it was proclaimed. And when they saw Jesus and his disciples eat with their hands without washing them, which is not just a rule for cleanliness, but a rule to make sure that you're spiritually clean before you eat, they went right up to this teacher and they said, "How can you do this? You know the law. You know that you're supposed to eat. You're supposed to wash your hands every time you eat." Jesus said something incredible to them, something I'd never heard before. He said, "It's not what goes into you that defiles. Sometimes it's what comes out of you that is dirty." Jesus took the law and he flipped it upside down. He made me see it in a new way that, following every letter of the law might not be what the Torah is all about. So I couldn't get enough. I had to follow him. I had to learn more. I had to see what else he was going to teach. What else could he be telling his followers? What new way, what new understanding could I get from this teacher? So I expected Jesus as a teacher to go maybe into the region of Jerusalem, to some of the important towns. But as I began to follow him, I realized we were heading north. We weren't heading south to Jerusalem and some of the other Jewish cities. We were heading north, and eventually we came to this region of Tyre. Now, Tyre is right on the Mediterranean Sea, so it's a seaport. And it's full of people from all over the Mediterranean, all over our world. It's full of foreigners. It's not a Jewish town. It's a place where foreign people come to exchange goods and news and come together in all sorts of different ways which are foreign to me. And as we came into this town, Jesus again was tired from the long journey he had made, the healing and the teaching that he had been doing, and he wanted to escape into a house. And so someone allowed him to come into his house. But as he came in, of course, there were many of us, and we were noticed. And while he wanted to hide, he couldn't quite. And we couldn't keep all the people who wanted to see him out. And this woman came up. Now, this woman looked desperate. She certainly wasn't Jewish. She wasn't a part of our community. And she looked tired and desperate. And she didn't look clean to me. Someone said she was from Syrophoenicia, and I think that's in Greece. the region in that area. But she came up. She'd heard what Jesus was doing, and she came up right into the house. She came right up to him. And now, this was another thing that, in my time, women did not do this. Women were not permitted to talk to strange men without their husband or a male relative present. This was not done. So she broke a few of our customs. But as a foreigner in a foreign land, she came right up to Jesus. She got down on her knees and she begged him. She said, "Jesus, teacher, please heal my daughter. She has an unclean spirit. She is not well. Please help her." And she begged him and begged him and begged him. And Jesus looked at her and he said to her, "It's not fair. It would only be fair if the children are fed first, not the little dogs." Jesus called this foreigner a little dog. Now, I thought that was the end of it. And I was glad to hear that because I understood that when Jesus said the children should be fed first, he meant the children of Israel. And I'm a child of Israel, so I was glad that I was on the inside. I was included in what Jesus wanted to bring. He wanted to bring healing and faith to the people of Israel first. But this woman was quick-witted. She was smart. She said right back to Jesus, "Well, don't even the little dogs get scraps from the table from the children?" And Jesus, seeing that she would not give up, seeing that she had faith in what Jesus could do, he said, "You know what? You're absolutely right. Go home. Your daughter is healed." And she did. She went home, and some of the people with us followed her. They came back and said that that girl was sitting up in bed, and she was healed. It was a miracle. Something new was happening. So I, again, couldn't get enough, and I wanted to follow Jesus even more. And so I thought, since we had gone to this foreign land, that we would go straight back down to Galilee so I could go home, and maybe Jesus could go back to his people. But he didn't go that way. After Tyre, he went back even further north to Sidon. And then when we started to come back south, I thought, okay, great, we're going home. But he went to the other side of the lake. He went to this region called the Decapolis, the 10 cities where Rome had established all of these places, all these cities that they had control of. And as we went into one of the towns in the region of the Decapolis, more people were bringing people to be healed by Jesus. And these people were bringing a man who again looked very worn down. And as he approached, as his friends brought him to Jesus, we could see that he couldn't hear. And he could barely speak. He had problems speaking. And in our society, again, if you can't hear and you can't speak, you're probably not going to be included in a lot of the ways that we worship God. And he probably couldn't have a job because he couldn't hear or speak. So these friends brought this deaf man to Jesus, and Jesus, seeing him, had mercy on him. And he took him aside from the crowd as he could, but I saw him around the corner there. And Jesus took this man, and he took his fingers and put them in his ears. And he spat on his hands, something that healers I'd seen do before. And he took the spit and he touched the man's tongue. And with the fingers in his ears, Jesus said, "Ephphatha," which means, "be opened." And the man stood up immediately, and he could hear, and he was speaking clearly. Again, Jesus healed someone new, and I was amazed. All of us were amazed, and we couldn't stop talking among ourselves what good that Jesus had done. Jesus told us not to tell anybody else, but I can't help it. I can't help but tell other people about the good things that he's done. And as I returned home, I thought more about what Jesus had done and where we had gone. And while, of course, this is miraculous that a woman's daughter was healed and a deaf man can now hear, what I was more blown away by was that Jesus at first said he was going to keep it keep his healing just for the children. But he didn't do that. He traveled to somewhere new and helped foreigners. Helped people not like us, not like me. He helped a guy who I wouldn't touch if I saw him on the street. He brought him in and helped him to open his hearing. Jesus started with this small circle, and as he traveled around, I felt like the circle of who he included as part of God's children kept growing. And as I was home reflecting on what this might mean, I thought about my own practice. If Jesus, a teacher, is teaching us that the circle is getting wider, then is it on me to also make that circle wider? Am I supposed to go help these people that I don't really want to touch, that don't look like me, that aren't clean? Is that what I'm supposed to do? And if Jesus says it's important to go and help the foreigner and help the people who aren't a part of my society, could Jesus even help me? Could Jesus even help a guy who only goes to church sometimes and really wants to focus on just the people around me? Could Jesus have grace and mercy even for me? Could Jesus help me to share that grace and mercy with others? I hope that it's so. And I'll keep proclaiming that Jesus is doing wonderful things and widening that circle of love and grace to everyone he encounters.